by thanking Callaway for having us here. I've been a staff member for 10 years, and it was so good to see Nick out here. I think he's one of the smartest club fitters I've ever known. He has fit me the past 7 years, and my equipment's always dialed in by him. This is a great facility to come down to, and so I just really want to thank Callaway for having us here today. It feels like home. So a little bit about the mental game. I think it's hard to coach because we don't really get to see results instantly. It's a lot different when you're working with a player and they finally got that path and that face matched up and they just crushed a big drive, and you get that instant gratification of like, okay, a change was made, something happened. But the mental game, you don't often see results instantly. How many times do you have one of your players swing and they're like, oh, I really regulated that emotion. You guys see that? I regulated that emotion. Or, oh, that was a really good visual shot that I just hit. We don't get an opportunity to see inside our students' brains. And so I think it's a very interesting relationship that we have with our students, that we ultimately influence their mental game, but a lot of times we just don't see the results instantly. So my purpose today is to be able to share a couple of the tools that I use with players to coach the mental game, things that you can do as PGA professionals, people that you can reach out to add to your team if you want to go a little bit deeper with some of your athletes. Part of my background is a licensed psychotherapist. And I went back to school in early 2011, got my master's degree, became licensed by the state of California to practice psychotherapy, and now I'm finishing up my doctoral degree. And part of the reason I did that is because working with students, there was only so much change that I could help a student make from just changing their path or changing their pressure shift or where they're hitting it on the club face. You know, we're not working with robots, we're working with human beings. And the relationship that we create as a teacher and a coach is so paramount and influential to our students' change that I think me learning more about psychology, more about beliefs, more about people's emotions and how they handle adversity on the golf course was something that took my teaching to a new level. Who here changes games? Just go ahead and raise your hand if you change games. I hope that if you're teaching golf lessons that everyone's hand should be up, because that's why students are coming to us. They want their game to change. And if you change a game, you're actually changing your student's brain. You're changing neural connections, you're rewiring connections, you're strengthening neural connections, you're changing how they feel inside. So different neurotransmitters are going to be released depending on their interaction with you. You're also changing motor patterns. So if you're changing games, you're changing brains. And if you're changing brains, then you're changing people's lives. So ultimately, everybody here acts as an agent of change when it comes to teaching golf lessons. And that's a responsibility that we shouldn't take lightly. When we're interacting with other people, we may touch their lives in more ways than we ever get a chance to observe. I'm sure many of us here today have had a mentor or a coach that has really influenced us. And maybe we didn't get an opportunity to let them know how important they were to either changing our lives, changing our golf swings, or just being of influence to us. So take that role seriously. You are all agents of change when you're working with students on just improving their golf swing, improving their game. Who here talks about the mental game with their students? Does that topic ever come up? What are some of the topics that you might address? Let's go ahead and shout them out. Patience? Okay. Self-talk?
Attitude.
Commitment, breathing, trust, creativity. Fantastic. Fear, big one. There's a lot of concepts that come up in our teaching and coaching relationship that you all can be prepared and have tools to use in order to help your players be better. Some of the topics that we're going to cover today are going to include visualization, confidence, emotional regulation, goal setting, relaxation. And you have a packet that I've gifted you, some wonderful resources that I've come across that have been very helpful when it comes to working with players. So let's start off with goal setting. obviously we have a student come to us in our lesson who have a goal. They want to get better, they want to change ball flight, maybe they just want to spend time with you. But there's certain types of goals that are more helpful than others. And you can educate your students on the type of goals, give them the vocabulary on how to really enhance their performance. So outcome and performance goals versus mastery or process goals. Has anyone heard of those different types of goals before or been exposed to that verbiage before? A couple of you. So outcome and performance goals are what we look at the end result. That would be the student that says, I want to win the golf tournament. I want to shoot 72. I want to win the state championship, be player of the year. Those are all outcomes, things that happen at the end. Process goals and mastery goals are more learning based. The goal would be to make the best putting stroke possible, to have the best setup that the individual can exhibit. When looking at research, mastery goals are far more superior in enhancing performance than performance goals. I think we all know that on some level, that when you're standing on the first tee and you're thinking about winning the tournament, you're really not in the present moment. And if you can focus or you can train your student to think about the here and now and to focus on making their best pre-shot routine and turning that into their best driver swing, that in itself will get them closer to the outcome. But we can't focus on the outcome. We have to focus on the process. So give your students the vocabulary when you're working with them and you're sort of setting up a plan. What are going to be our outcome goals? Let's go ahead and set maybe a 3, 6-month, 12-month outcome goal, and then let's establish the process on how we're going to accomplish those goals. Now, when we get into process goals, we need to establish SMART goals. And SMART goals is an acronym for the different characteristics that are really helpful to make the goals as concrete as possible. Have you ever had a student come to your tee box or your lesson tee and say, what do you want to do today? I want to get better. What does better mean? What does better mean to you? Because it's going to mean something different to you than it would be to me. So SMART goals are simple, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And there's a couple of different variations of what those letters individually mean, but I think students really retain that. They're simple, they're measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So if you're setting a lesson goal with a student, keep it to 1. Keep it simple. What are we going to work on today? Setup. Great. Don't start working on the golf swing and the plane and pressure and rotation when your simple goal is to work on setup. Is the goal measurable? Could you measure progress from the beginning of the lesson to the end of the lesson? We've got video to help document our progress. We have launch monitors to help measure our progress. So help your students find some sort of metric to be able to measure what their progress is. So that when they come back to you in 6 months and you sort of summarize your time together, do you have something to show them, here's data, to say we got better or we met your goals? Are the goals attainable? With their lifestyle, with their work commitments, with their equipment, with their access to practice facilities? Are the goals even attainable? Keep that in mind for them. Help them figure it out if they're setting goals that can be reached. And are they realistic? If you have a 70-year-old student come to you saying, I want to win the Masters next year, could that be realistic for that student? Help them realize for themselves, is there maybe a different way that they can achieve some goals besides making it too big where they might increase the chance of failure? And lastly, are the goals timely? Be able to have an end goal. If you want to get better and you come up with measurable objectives to get better, when do we need to get better by? Is it 2 weeks from now? Is it 6 months from now? So be able to have a timely factor to those goals. And you can really take this lesson to lesson. Every student that comes to you for a 30-minute lesson, hour lesson, go through this goal-setting process with them, and they're actually going to walk away more with knowing what the heck they worked on than just hitting golf balls for an hour. They'll start to take that to their own practice as well. Instead of just hitting a whole pyramid of balls, they'll actually have an intention, they'll know what they're working on, and they'll know how to measure it. So now let's move into our next stage, which is going to be your first handout in your packet, and that's going to be emotional regulation. We've seen students on the lesson tee become frustrated. We've seen students become angry. We've seen students become sad. We've seen it on TV with tour players. And being able to teach emotional regulation doesn't have to come from a therapist. It can come from someone who's been in their shoes. And there's a couple of tools that I use with students as young as 4 or 5 years old, all the way up to my oldest student of 82. Being able to teach how to regulate emotions when they start flooding your brain. So when an emotion is experienced, oftentimes our brain cannot process logic very well. Has anyone ever gotten so mad that they weren't able to think straight? Rage, anger, we've all been there. Someone cuts you off in traffic and you're just super angry and you can't think straight for a couple minutes. Well, think about it on the golf course. If you hit a shot that you don't like and you don't know how to handle it, how are you going to be able to approach the next shot more clear-headed? We have to be able to learn how to regulate our emotions. So a helpful drill that I use with students when they're regulating emotions is I start teaching this a containment drill. I ask them, where do you feel the emotion in your body? So let's say they hit a shot and they just sliced it out of bounds. Where do you feel that emotion? They might say, right here on my chest. Okay? On your chest, in your chest, what color is that emotion? I get a lot of reds and oranges and yellows for anger. Great, so you've got a sensation in your chest. It's red. What shape is it? It's a triangle. Great, now we've contained the emotion. We have a red triangle in our chest. We know exactly what we're sensing, instead of just being frustrated that the golf ball sliced out of bounds. And then I ask them to name it. You'll see juniors oftentimes create fun names. Oh, it's ring. I'm going to name that ring. Adults will tend to go with emotions. It's anger, it's frustration. Let the student name it whatever they feel is a good fit for them. So now I've got a triangle that's red in my chest, named anger. Now I can work with it. So now the brain is kicking into gear. We can process it. We can regulate it. Through the use of breathing, you can now start to move that emotion through your body. With a deep inhale and a deep exhale, you can start to move that red triangle a little bit higher. Eventually to the point where you inhale and exhale, you can move that emotion out of your body. And you can teach your students to get so skilled at this, by the time they walk from their tee box to their shot, they're now back to a neutral state. And they're not filled with anger anymore. And then they can approach the next shot much more clear-headed without being flooded. So it's a really, really great exercise to start to teach individuals to regulate their emotions. And you can try it yourself so that you get good at practicing it. That's a lot easier to teach your students. And then I'll use the emotional thermometer. So the emotional thermometer is almost using your body as an image of a thermometer. Level 10 all the way up here by my head, level 1 all the way down by my feet to make me feel grounded. So if I hit a shot and I'm not happy with it and I'm flooded with a sense of emotion, I can now start to rate it right away. So 3 putting from 15 feet, that's going to bring me up to a 10. Being able to identify the intensity of the emotion already allows you to begin to process it. And then that level 10, by the time I start going to the next hole, starts to decrease. And I visualize it going all the way back down to my feet to a level 1. Now I feel grounded and centered, ready for my next shot. I'll oftentimes have some blank thermometers printed out in paper in my golf bag. I consider this my desk. Got everything in my golf bag as I'm at my teaching site. And so if I'm working with an individual who's having difficulty with emotions and I'm sensing it, I'll just pull out my emotional thermometer and I'll have them just fill it in. What are you feeling right now and what level are we at? So they're able to externalize that emotion, put it down on paper, be able to process it, and then move on to the next shot. So let's move into confidence. Confidence is a topic I think we hear a lot about on our lesson tee. I just don't feel good about playing in that tournament, or not really good with my 3-wood, I'm just not feeling confident enough. So how do we as teachers and coaches improve confidence in our students? First thing we need to do is know what areas we need to be confident in. That's applicable to the student. So in the confidence profile, you'll see that there's 12 different segments on the outside of the worksheet. And what I'll have players do is list the 12 areas of their golf game that they want to assess their confidence in. It could be short game, putting, driving, bunker play. So now they have this shape with all these different areas of their golf game that they want to be confident in. And then they start shading from the inside of the shape out. So level 0 is in the middle, level 10 is on the out. As a player is more confident in one particular area, they'll start to shade more. As they're less confident in a different area, they'll shade less. Now they have visual proof of what's going on the inside. And then you as the coach can sit down with them and say, all right, I'm noticing that putting, you've only shaded in a level of 3, but driving, you're a level of 7. So if we're going to maximize our time together, let's not focus on driving because you're really confident in this area. Let's go ahead and focus on putting because you're only at a level of 3. And this is a really fun drill to use over the course of your coaching relationship. So having a student maybe fill this out every month. It's another way for you to monitor and measure your progress with the student, and also a way for the student to see where they're at in their mental game. Confidence comes from our past history of experiences. So if a student has a whole resume of negative experiences on the first tee, then clearly they're not going to be confident when they get to the first tee. Have you ever checked in with a student after a round and the only pieces that you hear of their story are the negative shots they hit, and they haven't shared all the wonderful shots that they hit? So maybe out of a score of 82, you heard 70 shots they didn't like, but you didn't hear the 12 that they did. Well, that's not going to support their confidence. See, confidence is linked to self-efficacy. And self-efficacy is the belief that you can actually achieve something and do something. So if a student is only recalling moments of failure on the golf course, then they're chipping away at their confidence and they're chipping away at their belief in themselves. So you as the coach have to help redirect their thoughts to the areas of their game that they succeeded in, things that they did really well. Maybe they only hit one great drive out of the 14 driver opportunities. Draw a lot of attention to that one experience. So that has more power than the 13 drives that they don't like. Now you can start to build a confidence resume. And a confidence resume is going to be sort of the student's mental reservoir of all the times that they performed really, really awesome on the golf course. So that anytime they're in a situation that might trigger them or create some anxiety, they can pull upon their confidence resume and say, you know what, here's all the times that I was a rock star on the first tee. I'm not going to pay attention to the times that I didn't do well. I'm only going to pay attention to the times that I did great. And you'll start to see on that confidence profile, they begin to change, and you begin to build up some more belief in the student. So that the next time they get into an anxiety-provoking situation, they've now got the tools to be able to feel like they can perform. So that's a really helpful tool that I like to use with my students. Let's move into concentration. In our society today, there's so many things that distract us, particularly technology. Cell phones that go off, we've got all these different social media that we learned about this morning. Busy, busy lives. Sometimes it's hard to get a student just to concentrate in the 60 minutes that they might be working with you without them answering their cell phone or have to respond to other pieces in their life. So concentration in our society is actually, studies are showing that it's decreasing. We are not very good at concentration in society as a whole. But it is a learnable skill. And you can improve your concentration not only as teachers, but you can help improve your athletes with concentration. And there's two forms that are really helpful to build on your own, but to also work with your students, and that's going to be self-hypnosis and meditation. Has anyone heard of sports hypnotherapy? A couple of you? So there's a niche in hypnotherapy where therapists can use hypnosis to help improve performance. So there's a script that I've included in your tools of what self-hypnosis would look like. And through this script, you can record an MP3 file, you can record on a CD, the student can record their voice, and as you read through the script, you can start to now implant some positive self-statements about your game. Self-hypnosis isn't, seeing that therapist up on stage making someone do funny tricks. Hypnosis is more about deep relaxation and getting into such a relaxed and open state that you're very subjective and you're very open to different ideas. And so if you can start to implant some positive self-statements in a self-hypnosis script, then you can have a student begin to improve their concentration and also build up their self-confidence, so it really ties in nicely together. So you'll notice at the end of that script, there's kind of an area for you to start to begin to customize to the student. Improving focus, I can improve focus, I can improve my golf game, I can feel good about myself. And I suggest that students listen to their recorded file or their CD before they go to bed. It takes about 3 or 4 minutes to start improving that concentration skill. I included a couple of meditation links. Meditation can be kind of scary for people because they're like, I don't know if I can get real quiet for real long and sit there with my hands out, with my legs crossed. That's not necessarily meditation. Meditation is the ability to focus on one thing at one time and know that you're doing it. Focusing on one thing at one time and know that you're doing it. That's what meditation is. And if you can just start focusing on one thing for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you can really work your way up to maybe a 20-minute session. Well, all we have to do when we hit a golf shot is focus for about 13 to 20 seconds. So if you can start to train people to be able to focus and be engaged in little 20-second intervals, they're going to play a lot better golf. Sometimes it's hard to get our students to focus for about 10 seconds. You got to keep them engaged, keep them focused. But teaching them that it's a skill and being able to practice it on a daily basis, even if it's 3 minutes, is going to be really helpful for them. The reason why I like those links, and I really suggest you kind of explore them, is you can download them straight to your phone and you can pick the interval of time that you feel most comfortable with. Start with 5 minutes, start with 7 minutes, and kind of work your way up. So self-hypnosis and meditation, 2 very good ways to begin the process of improving your concentration. Relaxation. How many times do we see our players on the tee get so tense? You can see their muscles just bulging out of their forearms or tense all the way up to their shoulders. I showed a couple of summits ago with Nikki Gatch, who is my victim for the day, a process of being able to show relaxation while swinging a golf club. She had a potato chip in between her teeth, and she was able to monitor the tension in her body as she was swinging a golf club, making sure that she wasn't going to break that potato chip. Well, another way to improve relaxation while you're over the golf shot and while you're preparing for your golf shot is through a technique called progressive muscle relaxation. In fact, you can do it in the course of walking from your tee shot to your next shot. So I want everyone to go ahead and stand up. Just a second, we're going to go through a little progressive muscle relaxation. Okay, so I want you to picture that you've just hit a shot that you don't like. It can be any sort of shot. It can be a putt, drive, anything. First thing I want you to do, feel like you're squeezing your feet in your shoes. Crunch up those toes as tight as you can. and then relax them. Squeeze those feet really, really, really tight as you can, and then relax them. Now I want you to work all the way up to your glutes. Feel like you squeeze your glutes as tight as you can, and then relax. Squeeze the glutes as tight as you can, and then relax. Now I want you to squeeze your fists. Ball up your fists and squeeze them really, really, really tightly, and then relax them. And one more time, squeeze those fists as tight as you can, and then relax them. Great, go ahead and have a seat. Anyone feel a little bit more in control of their body after having just the awareness of being able to squeeze their feet, squeeze their glutes, squeeze their fists? So if you feel that sudden rush of emotion and you start to become tense as you're proceeding to your next shot, you can, on purpose, tense up your muscle groups and then relax them, and then be able to feel sort of a sense of deep relaxation. In your packet, you'll see some different exercises for progressive muscle relaxation that you can help with your students, and you can also work individually on your own. Using your breath as a source of relaxation is extremely helpful. I think we know the power of breath, how we really, really deep down into our diaphragm instead of just having shallow breathing. As you're tensing those muscle groups and you're really taking in a deep breath, you're going to be able to relax the muscles, start to clear your mind a lot easier, and then be able to get into a good place before that next shot. So I want to make sure that you really understand about honoring your emotions as you feel them. By no means I don't want you to feel emotion. I want you to feel the emotion. But we want to have our students be able to feel the emotion, process it, recover it, all in the time it takes to hit the next shot. And so these tools are going to be able to allow you to experience the emotion and then get yourself into a good state moving forward. Now moving into anxiety, which is going to be one of my more favorite topics to talk about, because it's probably the number one sports psychology concept that comes up, I think, with our students, is being anxious when it comes to hitting a shot, or being in a competitive environment that they feel uneasy about. Part of my training as a therapist is a technique called EMDR, which stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing. Now, this is a technique that only a licensed clinician can use, but you can build on your team of physical therapists and trainers and sports psychologists and find someone who's EMDR trained and include that into your network of professionals, because it's very profound for athletes to be able to have exposure to that modality to get past anxiety and life adversity. What happens when we have a negative experience on the golf course is the memory is stored as a picture, but it's also stored as an emotion. And it's stored in our amygdala. So when we become triggered in our present day, our brain goes back to all of our different stored memories of other anxious moments, and that emotion is refelt. And that continues to happen. Anyone think that when Jordan Spieth was playing the Masters and he got to his favorite hole that he was going to be triggered from what happened the year past? He'd be a perfect candidate for EMDR. Because when you have such a adverse life experience, doesn't have to necessarily be trauma, but something that just really is emotionally triggering you, it is stored on a much deeper level than just a picture. You know, think back to some of your favorite birthdays, or your wedding, or the birth of your child. There's an emotional component that is stored with that memory besides just the picture of what happened. And it makes that memory so much more robust. The only downfall is when you become triggered in present day, you basically relive that experience time and time again. So you're constantly triggered. And what EMDR does is it allows the right and left hemisphere of the brain to talk and release that memory so that the individual can process it and not be triggered anymore. When we go to sleep and we get into REM sleep, our eyes actually move back and forth when our eyelids are closed. And that process is our brain's ability to consolidate the day's information. And so if we move our eyes back and forth in a wakeful state, we can stir up those memories, reprocess them, and then not be triggered in our present day form. So it's a pretty cool treatment modality. It's used a lot for post-traumatic stress disorder, but it's also used a lot in performance enhancement. So I have a guest who's going to be helping me today. We're going to be doing a little bit of EMDR in sort of a pseudo fashion. And Kim Falcone from La Jolla Country Club is going to come on up. Let's give her a big round of applause. I appreciate her doing this. So Kim, tell me a little bit about an experience that you've had that creates anxiety for you.
This is probably on the course, my biggest source of anxiety is anytime I have trouble left. Because my tendency is to miss left, and I've got quite a stockpile of memories of getting over a shot and getting into trouble. So that's probably my biggest source of anxiety on the course.
Okay. Do you have an experience in mind that you'd be willing to share of something in your past where you missed it left?
Yeah. So we had our women's match play championship last year, and we were at Aviara, and on the 18th hole I'd been leading the match and then got back down to even, and those of you that have played there or watched the Kia, you know that there's water right, and there's out of bounds left, which most people would be concerned about the right, but got up there, hit it left, hit the mound, hit the path, out of bounds, lost the match. And actually we played there last week in our women's team championship, and as Barry witnessed, I did the same thing. So that's definitely recent, as recent as last week.
Great. So just to summarize, to make sure I understand you correctly, so there's a fear of missing left, and you've had an experience in match play on this particular hole where you missed left, and that's sort of stored in your memory, because it was match play. Match play tends to be a little bit more emotional than stroke play. So that got stored on a really, really deep emotional level. And then when we were at our team championship, you come to that hole again, and either consciously or unconsciously, all of a sudden you're in that very similar state, and you remember what happened in that particular scenario.
Right.
So then you relive it, not only physically but mentally, and then that shot went left. Okay. So what we call the very first experience that she described is our trigger. So that's the target that we're going to process today, is that experience. And then what currently activates you now is anytime that there's trouble left, you're going to be sort of re-exposed to that memory, that experience. So what happens to you when you experience anxiety? Can you describe like what it feels like in your body?
I would say it's more of a tension feeling. I don't feel necessarily what I would consider nervous, but I feel tense, and I feel like my breathing gets a little quicker. I just feel I feel tension through here, but really in my shoulders, but through my chest.
Okay, good. All right, so in that scenario, how would you like to feel when you walk up to the tee? And we're actually going to be playing this golf course together as a group, so I'll be able to provide some feedback after I see what happens. When you get onto that hole again at Aviara in a couple of weeks, how would you like to feel in that scenario?
I'm relaxed, confident, feel like I know that I have control.
And is there a picture in your mind, if you were to really kind of visualize how you'd like it to happen? Can you walk us through sights, smells, sound. Really make a vivid description for the group, what you'd like to see.
I definitely feel like when I'm the most relaxed, or when I'm able to kind of cope with feeling anxious in other situations, that I'm really aware of sound, and I'll just kind of pause to kind of see what I can hear. Like if I were doing that right now, I'd be hearing the traffic, I'd hear some birds over there, try to do that. So I'd like to have that same sensation where I can really hear everything. Also just visualizing, a beautiful high shot going toward the middle of the green. Just being more relaxed where I'm aware of my surroundings more than kind of in my head.
Okay. And so when you think about the picture of what you want that to look like, can you come up with the one sensation that is the most prominent for you of how you would like to feel?
I guess just a sense of relaxation.
Okay, so relaxation is that key word. Okay.
My muscles are relaxed, more, soft muscles, less tension in my shoulders.
Okay. So if you were to look at that experience of how you would like to perform, you have a picture of the shot, you'd like to feel more relaxed. What is the image that comes up for you that is the most vivid? You could just narrow it down. You laid out the whole scenario of what you want it to look like. What is the image that is the most specific and consolidated?
Of the shot itself is probably just the ball landing by the pin.
Great. Okay, so come on over here to our chairs, and to avoid distractibility, I'm going to have you sit in this chair. And you're going to go ahead and take your sunglasses off. So what we're going to do with Kim is two different forms of what's called bilateral stimulation. And as I mentioned, when we go to sleep and our eyes are moving back and forth, our right hemisphere and our left hemisphere are talking to one another and sort of consolidating our day's worth of information. So in a waking state, we're going to be doing bilateral stimulation with Kim. And there's multiple forms, not just the eye movements, but we can use what's called tapping. And tapping would look like just touching the right or left thigh. Butterfly tap would be touching the right or left shoulder. Kim's going to be able to do this on her own, and then I'm going to help facilitate and teach her how to use this technique. So anytime that there's trouble on the left, she'll be able to recall the resource of being relaxed, tension-free, and seeing that image of the shot. Okay. So all you're going to do is just be looking straight ahead. When I hold my fingers up, you're going to watch my fingers go back and forth. So what I'd like you to do is pull up that image in your mind.
Great.
Notice the image of what you'd like to happen.
Okay. All right.
Notice the positive feelings that you feel in your body. And then I want you to follow my fingers. Go ahead and take a deep breath. Let it go. What do you notice in your body?
Feel relaxed.
There you go. If you were to come up with a cue word that encapsulates the relaxed feeling and the image together that you could use to remind yourself about this feeling, what would that cue word be?
You mean a word starting with Q?
No,
I don't know what a cue word is.
a word that would cue you up.
I mean, actually, it's funny. It probably is a key word. Quiet, actually.
Quiet.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want you to picture that image in your mind of how you'd like to perform. I want you to hold that feeling in your body. Hold the word quiet. And follow my fingers. Take a deep breath. Let it go. What do you notice?
I'm relaxed.
Okay. Just down for a second. So now I want you to go ahead and close your eyes. These are called tappers. There's two little vibrators, and she's going to hold one in each hand as another form of bilateral stimulation. And so on this module, I'm going to be able to see how many times the vibrators are moving back and forth. So I want you to go ahead and pull up that picture. Notice the positive feeling that you have in your body. Tie in that word quiet. Take a deep breath. Let it go. What do you notice?
I feel quiet, actually. I feel very, very relaxed, kind of peaceful.
Okay. Let's hit some shots. So. I know you've been sitting most of the day and haven't had an opportunity to really take some warm-up swings. Why don't you go ahead and take the orange whip and take a few swings, kind of get your body loosened up. And just as a precursor for liability, Kim has consented to this treatment prior to us beginning it. All right, Kim, so I want you to hit a couple of shots. And everything left of these 3 yellow flags is water. Feel free to, if you want to go through your pre-shot routine, whatever you want to do. Let's go ahead and hit 3 shots. One, after you hit this 3rd shot, I want you to go ahead and hold your finish, and I'm going to come in behind you and just tap your shoulder, so just sort of stay frozen in that finish position. Stay there. Just kind of notice that quiet. Go ahead and do one more. Come over and have a seat for just a second. What did those 3 shots feel like for you? I know you've got a big audience watching you. You had a little bit of some pretend image to the left that was of hazard.
Yeah, I tried to maintain the feeling as best I could. I did feel a little bit of tension, probably just because I'm going to perform in front of everybody, all these great players. But I tried to just take that deep breath before I hit and try to recall that feeling I had sitting over here. So it felt pretty good.
Good. Okay, so we're going to do it 3 more times. 2 we're going to do with eye movements. 1 we're going to do with Tappers. And we're going to hit a couple of shots again. Okay, so kind of pull up the image of how you would like to perform. Notice where you feel it in your body. Tune into that word quiet. Follow my fingers. Take a deep breath. Let it go. What do you notice? So let's go ahead and do it again. Pull up that picture. Make it as vivid as possible. Hold that feeling in your body. Tie into the word quiet. Follow my fingers. Let it go. What do you notice? Gonna fall asleep on me here. Okay, pull up that picture. Notice where you feel it in your body. Tie into the word quiet.
like I can visualize that shot better than in the beginning.
Great. Okay, let's go ahead and hit 3 shots. So again, we got that nasty water that's to the left of those yellow flags. It's just a Therapy where it just vibrates. And so it's just counting the vibrations. And then it stimulates for her. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go through our pre-shot routine. After each shot, you're going to hold that finish for me. And I'm going to come in and then just tap your shoulders. Pause there. Hold that feeling. Great. How'd that feel? Good. 2 more. Tap into that feeling. Use that word quiet as your cue. Great. Stay there. One more, you're doing a great job. Tap into that word quiet. Notice where you feel it in your body. Stay there. Great. How do you feel?
Relaxed. It's a little relaxed. Leave my mic around. I like that to be on my phone.
Yeah.
No, it feels good. I feel exactly how that quiet feeling.
Yeah?
It's exactly how I feel versus the anxious feeling, and I also do feel like I'm able to visualize that better. I really wasn't ever thinking about yellow.
Yeah. None of those shots coincidentally went left of yellow. The very first one was the closest one to that. So what's difficult for the mental coach is that the only feedback I'm going to get is from Kim's experience. So her being able to express what she's noticing in her body. The only other thing I can measure is if she's going to hit it left. And if it goes left of our target, then I know she might have been triggered. But getting her feedback and sort of hearing that, hey, I'm relaxed, I have a better picture of what that shot's going to look like, lets me know that she's starting to move past and create a future template for success whenever there's trouble left. Well, now she can't leave because I can't be on the golf course with her tapping her shoulders every single time to kind of set that feeling, so we need to teach her how to do it on her own. So come back over real quick. This time we're going to show the audience because you won't have to be moving your eyes here. So this is going to be a form of tapping. You're just going to use your hands on the tops of your knees, and then as you hold that image in your mind, notice the feeling in your body, tying that word quiet. Just want you to press on each kneecap, about 8 times total, back and forth. Good. Let's go ahead and try it in a different version, see which one feels most comfortable for you. You're going to cross your arms like a butterfly, and you're going to feel that sensation in your body, the picture in your mind. Go ahead and tap back and forth. Cue into the word quiet. Great. Okay, so you like the news better? Okay, so how would we be able to do this if you're playing in a tournament and you're actually on the golf course? We need to be able to kind of tie this into your pre-shot routine, right? Okay, so what this is going to look like is as you go through your pre-shot routine and you're behind the ball and you're starting to feel that anxiety come up, you can go ahead and just tap right here on your thoughts, back and forth. And so hold that picture in mind of what you want to see yourself do. Notice the positive sensation in your body. Tie in that word quiet. Tap back and forth about 8 times when you feel comfortable, and then go ahead and approach the shot. Great job. Can we give her a round of applause? She's awesome. Yeah, one more to do. Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for that. Can you describe what you felt on that last shot? Let me get your mic.
It was definitely a different sensation when I did that. And I felt like everything kind of went away except for the little things that I like to hear and feel, like the birds and things like that. I kind of forgot that there was anybody else there, and more like in the zone kind of thing.
Yeah.
I do have to say, even just after when we did the first little session and I came up and you said, okay, the water left, I did feel kind of some of that come back. The second time I really didn't, and this time again it didn't exist. So.
Awesome. So basically what she has articulated is that we were able to stir up that amygdala, that stored memory of anxiety left for her. And in the process of moving her eyes back and forth, we were able to desensitize that experience for her brain. So then when she was exposed to it in an imaginary environment, she was able to move past that. Great job. Okay, so we got one more. There is one form of a metric that's kind of cool in sports psychology and being able to measure the brain, and that's focus band. Who here uses focus band? It's a really cool device to be able to tell how much mental chatter is going on. They share that the left brain can process about 40 pieces of information in a second, and the right hemisphere of the brain can process about 11 million pieces of information a second. So when Kim is standing over a shot, it's going to be much more productive for her to be able to engage in the right brain than it is the left brain, because she can take in more senses. And so when you were picturing that shot, you were actually engaged in more of your creative side, rather than standing behind it thinking, don't hit left, make sure that I get my plane high enough, rotate my hips. And so focus band is a cool way to be able to see what your students are doing and what side of the hemisphere they're in. And what happens is it links up to an iPad or your iPhone, and an avatar comes up, a little picture of a brain, and then it highlights if the student has a lot of mental chatter. In the left brain, it's going to turn red, and if they're in the right brain, it's going to turn green. But the cool piece about this neurofeedback, which is really just training the brain in real time, is that it uses audio feedback. And so there's a difference in tones. So when we put this on Kim, there's going to be a difference that she's going to hear through her ears, whether she's more in the left brain versus the right brain to be able to hit the shot. Can you take off your hat for me?
Am I going to do that?
Yes. So there's 3 sensors here on the back of the focus band, and this is what picks up sort of the mental activity that's going on. It's going to go right in the center of your brain and then or forehead. And then if you want to go ahead and Velcro this on the back, I'll hold it on the front. Just make it kind of tight. Perfect. Okay.
Shock treatment coming up.
Yeah, she thinks it's just focus band, but really, it's ECT. Alright, so I know most of you aren't going to be able to see this iPad, so we're going to base it more on the tones that we hear. Okay, sort of that high pitch that you hear means that she's in the left brain right now. And as the tone gets quieter, it's going to be more in the right brain. So what I want you to do is just sort of close your eyes, take a couple of deep breaths, see if you can harness that quiet feeling. Sort of notice your breath in and out. Go ahead and take So we can tell that there's a lot of, you could hear a little bit of the fluctuation of the tone going down. She didn't quite get into the right brain. A lot of mental chatter. Obviously there's a big audience in front of you. It's hard to be really focused, so I understand that. So we're going to try that one more time. Let's see if we can try to get that tone to change as you sort of focus on your breath. Notice the breath go in and out, and see if we can really try to get that tone to quiet down. Excellent, great job. Did you all hear how that tone got a little bit lower? That was her being able to get into more of that right brain. So now we're going to go ahead and hit a shot. What I'd like you to try to do is in your pre-shot routine, before you approach the shot, really harness that quiet feeling. See if you can get that sound to drop down. Once you feel that sound is in a lower place, then I want you to go ahead and finish your shot. And for those of you that have flight scope, this will link up to the flight scope and to the body track, so you can kind of get all three working at once. Great job. Awesome. Let's give her a round of applause. You can take that off. So you were able to get into that right brain right before you hit that tone really dropped down. That was great. Thank you so much.
Is it different when she moved on that little tap technique that brought her to the 18 and not to the left? That would apply to her at all, or is that different?
No, it's absolutely an opportunity to her engage in that tapping to get her into more of a quiet state. You know, because what happens a lot of times.
I actually did.
Oh, you did? Fantastic.
I kind of stood there and kind of went like that.
Perfect, perfect. What happens a lot of times is that when you get into that anxious state, your mind starts to think. The cognitions come up. What might happen if I hit it left? Oh my gosh, there's water left. And so your brain starts to get really conscious and very cognitive. And so with Kim going more into the tapping, being able to get into that quiet state, she's then able to get a little bit more in the right brain to kind of picture the shot. So she only sees the picture of what she wants to happen, and then allows her body to quiet and get relaxed. So you can use that tapping method to tie in and get into a good state with the focus band. So I'd really recommend kind of experimenting with the focus band if you have opportunity to take a look at it. There's a little bit of a bibliotherapy at the end of your packet, and these are some of the resources or the books that I have a lot of interest in that I'd like to share with you. They're really great for coaching the mental game, also opening up your eyes to a little bit about mindset, how you can fill up your toolbox of versions of how to coach the mental game. So thanks so much for being a great audience. Really appreciate it. Big thanks to Kim for coming up here. Any questions?
The first example you started with, how somebody felt anger, obviously you see a lot of those colors of anger. What if your list was more of a lower emotion where you need to try and back up your parameter to be prepared, so a letdown, not an anger attention, but man, I hit another one left. Okay, I got to get back in the moment. How do you deal with the cooler blues, kind of those emotions to rise back into the moment?
So the question was, if the emotion isn't necessarily highly arousing, like anger would be, what if it was an emotion that someone experienced that was less arousing, such as like depression or sadness or upset? He described the color of it possibly being blue, a little bit more cooler or neutral colors. You have to be able to find, for you yourself as a player, but for your students as well, what is the optimal state of arousal? Because there's some players who can get angry and play really good. And then there's some players who can get angry that fall apart. And so that's different for everybody. So if you have a little bit lower arousal, let's say you hit a shot and you're a bit more sad or a bit more depressed, then you have to be able to, again, pull on your confidence resume, look at that reservoir of all the times that you did really awesome and you hit great shots to kind of pep yourself back up. But the technique is still going to be used for some of those cooler emotions, if you will, or less arousing emotions.
What happens when you hit a hole in one?
Soak it up as long as you can. He said, what happens if you hit a hole in one? Soak it up as long as you can. But I think there is something that's important that comes after that, because after a hole in one, you become so elated and so aroused, how do you hit the next shot? And so I hear a lot of accounts of individuals that do have a hole in one that followed up with a triple bogey. And so that's just a clue of that individual sort of being in the past and still kind of reliving that moment and not being present. It's the same thing that we do if we hold on to a negative shot. So it's being able to kind of contain that, say, all right, I had a hole in one, I'm going to enjoy it right now, now I get to the next tee box and I need to focus on this shot. And then I'll come back to it later after the 18th green and I'll kind of relive it again and enjoy it. Yeah, good question.
Is it true that your brain doesn't process negative words? So if you're standing on the tee and there's water and you're saying don't get in the water, don't get in the water, you have to tell yourself get in the water, get in the water?
So the question was, does the brain actually not process negative words, such as don't hit it in the water? It's not that the brain's not processing the negative word, it's processing the last word. So you could make a really lengthy statement, and the piece that's going to be the most profound is going to be that last word. So if a player says, don't hit it in the water, water is going to be what that brain registers. So then you want to help your students reframe that to say, I want to hit it straight in the middle of the fairway. So that fairway is sort of that key word that is processed in the brain. Take one more, yeah.
So the tapping, so to speak, is to clear the mechanism so you can get into the present tense. Right?
The tapping is a way for the emotion to be stirred up and then reprocessed at a calmer state so that it's not activating and triggering. A really good book, because everyone can use self-tapping as a non-clinician, and a really great book is called Tapping In by Laura Parnell, and she teaches how you can use this mechanism for yourself to be able to kind of, that's EFT. EFT would be more of the face tapping and this tapping, but tapping in itself is a great way to help kind of deregulate upsetting emotions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. How good was that?